Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, standing by for Governor Asa Hutchinson, who joins us now. Good morning, Governor. How are you?
Hugh, I'm just doing terrific. I'm down here in South Carolina, Greenville, so glad to be with you remotely.
Good to see you. Now, Governor, you are the embodiment of public service. 8 years as governor of Arkansas, many years in the Congress, Undersecretary of Homeland Security, head of DEA. You've done the whole thing, and I admire that. Why now for president?
Well, because our country's in trouble under Biden's policies. We're not producing energy as we should. We have a lax border security policy. We have a fentanyl crisis in America, and we're viewed as weak on the global stage. And so America needs to rise to the occasion. We need to stop spending so much at the federal level. So these are fundamental challenges that we face as a nation. And Hugh, you mentioned my experience. My experience matches the challenges that we face. Border security, head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, so I understand the drug crisis in America. I understand balancing a budget. I did that for 8 years as governor, and I did that when I was in the United States Congress. It's the last time we balanced the budget in our country. So I understand fiscal discipline. I understand America's strength. And so my background matches the needs that we have today. I have a vision for the future of America. So now is the right time. And that's why.
Now, Governor, are you 72? Do I have the age right?
I am 72. That's correct.
Do we need to get younger? Do the boomers, and you and I are both boomers, do we need to step aside and let people come up and serve who are younger and perhaps in the middle at the peak of their energy and mental acuity and rising rather than having enjoyed a great long career? Is it time to run for president at 72?
Well, everybody's in a different circumstance, but I don't know about you, but I played basketball last week. I still play full court basketball. And so, I've been blessed with good health. Now, it's also a question of what the alternatives are. Whenever you look at Donald Trump and you look at Joseph Biden, I'm bringing youthful vigor to the campaign. And so it's young in perspective. And then secondly, when you look at the other candidates out there, let's look at the policy. If there's some candidates in there that are young, but my goodness, they want to raise the voting age to 25. They want to pull back from Ukraine. They have ideas that don't fit for today's world and are wrong. And so, no, I think experience does count and ideas count, and put me in the category of saying we need youthful energy, but we also need some experience and some wisdom that comes from the travails of life that we go through. And that's important as well.
Governor, when I look at your campaign, I am reminded of nothing so much as another man I greatly admire, George Pataki, in 2016. He had been the governor of New York 4 times, and he could not get traction because he had no way to generate headlines. How do you overcome the Pataki problem?
Well, that's a good point. Let's look at the political dynamics of this year. First of all, this is the most unpolitical situation we've seen in politics in my lifetime. I think you'd probably agree with that. With a former president under indictment, we've got a president under investigation. We've got the external factors as well. So it's unpredictable. Secondly, whenever you look at getting traction, it's really a matter of the voters. And when they realize that we're going to have a massive loss under Donald Trump, up and down the ticket, it will be a massive loss for the GOP if he leads the ticket. And that awareness is going to sink in at some point. And whenever that awareness sinks in, they're looking for options to lead our party. And I'm one of those options. And whenever you look at my experience, as you point out, but also you look at my vision for America and how we want to have a pro-growth energy policy, how we want to utilize my experience in securing the border, how we can address the drug challenges that our families face in our communities, and then the challenge of violent crime. Whenever you look at our inner cities and you look at this last weekend, it wouldn't be bad to have someone as a federal prosecutor, former head of the DEA that understands law enforcement and can bring reform to the federal law enforcement. That is something that our base is crying for, and I bring the experience to do it, and you're going to hear more about that. And so I
Governor,
think my message today.
You were succeeded by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Governor Sanders signed in universal school choice in Arkansas in her first 3 months in office. Why didn't that get done under Asa Hutchinson in 8 years?
Well, we did move in that direction, and so we expanded school choice in Arkansas. I've been fully supportive of it. We obviously, whenever you look at what's happened in the last 3 months in school choice from Iowa, why didn't that get done earlier in Iowa? Why didn't it get done earlier in Arizona? I mean, the timing is perfect on this. And so we built the foundation for school choice that I've been promoting throughout my time. We passed educational savings accounts. We had public school choice and charter schools. That's been very expansive, but it's at a new level now, and I applaud it, and I'm glad it passed in Arkansas, and I fully supported it.
Governor, how much money did you raise in the second quarter?
Well, we haven't reported the second quarter yet, so you'll get to wait and see just like everybody else.
Oh, come on, Governor. Give us a little bit of news. How much did you bring in?
We have, we had a good quarter. I'm not competitive with, Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of money floating around out there. People can go to asa2024.com and they can help me get on the debate stage. So that's our focus right now, is not necessarily large donors. We need small donors in order to get on that debate stage.
Okay, without telling me the number, how many donors do you have to date? Because you got to get 40,000 for the August debate.
Hugh, I'll be very straightforward with you. I'm not there yet. And so there's a couple of requirements, as you know, to be on the debate stage. One is our polls, and our polls qualify where we are in our polling nationally. We qualify for the debate, but then you have to have 40,000 individual donors, and they can be any amount. We're not there yet, and we've got till like August 23rd to get there. So we have work to do, and we need people's support to get there.
Now, Governor, there's a difference between 5,000 and 35,000. Where are you on that spectrum in terms of number of donors?
Well, we're above 5,000, so we got again more work to do. We've got time to do it. But your point is well taken. This bothers me that the RNC has set this artificial line that you've got to cross in order to qualify for the debate. We ought to be more expansive than that rather than restrictive. You think about 40,000 donors. What does it take to get 40,000 donors? Perhaps it takes an explosive rhetoric in which you're totally uncontrolled and undisciplined, and that gets people excited. Or you have to spend a lot of money to get there. And so the RNC is basically saying you need to spend $1 to $2 million in order to generate 40,000 donors. We're going to get there, but it's just a matter of dollars and cents and magnifying the message between now and August.
You know, Governor, I ask every candidate about China because I consider it the existential threat to the United States. What do you think about China, and would you specifically speak about the genocide of the Uyghurs?
Well, first of all, the Uyghurs is a human tragedy that lies at the feet of responsibility of communist China. And, it's a Muslim minority. They're repressed. They're incarcerated. It's not just the Uyghurs that are repressed, though, in China. It's also the Christian believers and the churches that are there, that are underground, that they cannot publicly profess their faith. And these are repressive policies of China that the United States need to continue to speak out against. You ask about overall in reference to China, we have to show our strength, both militarily and economically. We have to show our willingness to compete and to invest in the strength of our military. And we have to have a stronger presence in that region of the world, including building up our bases in the Philippines, which we're glad we have restored there, but we need to have them properly equipped with the right personnel and the right weaponry and the right number of ships. And so we've got to right size those investments there in the Philippines.
All right, Governor, I saved my fastball for the last question, and you brought up Donald Trump. I normally don't bring up Donald Trump with other candidates unless they do, but you brought him up 3 times. You were governor before he became president, throughout his campaign for president, throughout his entire presidency, and throughout his post-presidency for 2 years. How often did you criticize him when he was in office?
Well, you can look at my Twitter account and you will see criticism of Donald Trump from the time that he ridiculed John McCain to some of his actions in reference to trade in other countries. I spoke out both internally and externally. Now, there's a lot of good things that he did, so I praised him as well. And so there was good policy, and so I supported his reelection. But it was what happened to Donald Trump after the election and leading up to it that hurt our democracy, that, as I've said, disqualified him for the presidency. And Hugh,
would you run on the no labels ticket if you did not become the nominee? And if Joe Manchin came to you, would Asa Hutchinson be a candidate for the no labels third party?
I'm a Republican. I've always been a Republican in my public career. I expect to support the nominee of the party, and I hope it's me, Hugh. Well,
I know that. If it's Trump, if it's the former president, will you support him?
Well, I don't expect to support Donald Trump.
So even if he's the nominee, you're not going to be a Republican supporter?
Pardon?
Even if he is the nominee and it's conclusive and overwhelming, you're just going to sit it out and maybe endorse Joe Biden?
I'll say this, Hugh. First of all, I don't expect him to be the nominee. Secondly, I do not believe he's the right one to lead our country, and we're going to have a massive loss if he is our nominee. And so I don't want that to happen. That's why I'm in here. That's why I'm fighting hard. I'm not going to speculate further what happens down the road. And Hugh, there's only one thing we haven't talked about. I hope that we can talk about that Missouri federal judge case at some point. You might need to have me back on the show, but that is a critical decision.
Stay through the break. We'll do an extra 3 segments, extra 4 or 5 minutes, and put it on the web so that people hear that. Don't go anywhere, Governor. I got to go to radio break, and we'll come back and talk to you a little bit about that, because that is indeed a very important case. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to salemnewschannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.
I'm back now with Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. Governor, you said before we went to the break on the radio show, you want to talk about the decision out of Louisiana rebuking the federal government's attempt to manipulate speech. Hold forth, because I'm with you.
Well, the Missouri judge basically ruled against what they call shadow banning, which means the federal government goes into the private sector, in this case, social media companies, and saying, you need to pay attention to this account, you ought to ban that account, and if you don't, we're going to threaten antitrust violation against you. That's a quick summary of the threat and how the government used its power to influence social media companies to ban conservatives. Now, it's a broader problem than what I just articulated, but I think everybody understands that issue. And the federal judge, it's a very lengthy opinion. I'm still working through about 180 pages, but it was very clear in his findings. And obviously, what's interesting to me is how quickly the Biden administration said they're going to appeal it, because this is something that should have bipartisan support and concern to address this shadow banning, this abuse of government power. And it's not just limited to social media companies. I've seen it in my world in terms of banking, in terms of other private sector operations, when the government comes and says, you need to take this action, you need to take that action. And we have to have accountability and transparency. And that's one of the announcements I'll be having coming up that addresses this in a bigger fashion, because again, it's not just a Biden problem, it's a government problem. It's a government problem, it's a law enforcement problem that we have to address.
ASA2024.org. Is it ASA2024.org?
No, 2024.com. ASA2024.com.
All right, Governor, very quickly, I think it's a Louisiana judge, but it was the Missouri Attorney General, but I could be wrong. What I want to conclude with is my triad question, because you know national security, we can't afford three legs of the triad anymore, or it doesn't look like it. Which one of those three would you fund the least or begin to phase out in order to keep America secure by fully funding the other two?
Well, you actually asked that question, and the triad is important historically. And whenever you look at our submarine capability, we need to strengthen it. Whenever you look at our long-range bomber, I think that is one that we have to look at, because we've lost many of the bases here in the United States that support that. I think, first of all, I'm not going to give up on any part of the triad, but I think it is important that we fund those. And then I'm going to listen to our military personnel and get the intelligence briefing before you make any decisions to alter our commitment to the triad.
Fair point. Governor Asa Hutchinson, asa2024.org. Keep coming back, Governor. And when you release that second quarter statement, send me a copy. And when you come to New Hampshire, let me know. I'll drive down and sit in the cheap seats and watch, all right?
Sounds great, Hugh. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Governor.